You can't heal someone who's addicted to running, but you can choose to stop chasing. And in that moment, when you choose yourself over their distance, you become the reason you start to heal. Not them, not the apology, not the closure. You, because self-respect is the loudest love letter you'll ever write. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel whole in the presence of someone emotionally unavailable. Healing doesn't happen in a breakthrough moment when the avoidant person finally turns around and says, "I see you now." It begins the moment you stop needing that to happen. It starts the second you realize you are not responsible for someone else's fear of closeness. And in that realization, something inside you shifts, maybe quietly, maybe painfully, but undeniably. That shift is you choosing yourself. The truth is, many people caught in relationships with avoidant partners spend so much trying to decode their silences, rationalize their emotional distance, and accommodate their unpredictability that they slowly begin to lose themselves. They shrink their voice to avoid conflict, walk on eggshells to maintain peace, and trade in their authenticity for temporary connection. It feels like love, but it costs your self-worth, and that is never real love. But then comes a moment, maybe after the 100th unanswered message, the 1,000th time you felt alone while together, or perhaps just one deep breath when your intuition screams louder than your heart, that you deciding no more. You decide that your peace is worth protecting, that your love is too sacred to keep handing to someone who doesn't know how to hold it. That moment might not feel glamorous. It may come with tears. It might even feel like failure. But that is the moment of power. Because when you choose yourself over their distance, you are no longer available for emotional crumbs. You're no longer playing the role of the patient healer, the fixer, or the understander. You become whole within your own energy. And ironically, this is often the exact moment when the avoidant starts to notice a shift, not because you yelled or demanded, but because your energy no longer revolves around their avoidance. The healing doesn't start when they come closer. It starts when you stop reaching, when you stop betraying yourself for the illusion of closeness. That is not detachment, it's self-respect. And self-respect is what teaches your nervous system that you are safe within your own love. So the most radical beginning of healing for an avoidant heart happens not through fixing or waiting. It happens through that single brave, bold choice you finally choose you. When you stop chasing and start mirroring, you disrupt a pattern that has likely defined every dynamic you've ever had with someone emotionally unavailable. The instinct to chase comes from a deep, often unconscious belief that if you just show enough love, patience, or understanding, the other person will finally feel safe enough to stay. You're not just trying to reach them, you're trying to prove your worth. But this dance only fuels the avoidant's fear. The more you chase, the more they pull away. The more you overfunction, the more they underfunction. And it becomes a loop that leaves you exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from yourself. Mirroring is not manipulation. It's not a game. It's not about matching coldness with coldness. It's about emotional self-regulation. When they go distant, instead of reacting from panic or anxiety, you pause, you breathe, you ask, what do I need right now? And then you give that to yourself. This isn't about punishing them, it's about protecting your peace. Avoidant individuals often expect others to fill the emotional gaps they refuse to face. They subconsciously rely on the other person to chase, to overextend, to prove love through endurance. When you stop doing that, it creates a kind of silence they aren't used to. It forces them to sit with the very feelings they're trying to avoid, discomfort, vulnerability, and fear. That silence, that space you create by stepping back, is where their real emotional work can begin, but only if you're not rushing to rescue them from it. By mirroring, you send a powerful message without saying a word. I will not abandon myself to keep you comfortable. And that energy shifts everything. It's calm, grounded, and deeply secure. That kind of presence creates a container for intimacy to grow, not by forcing closeness, but by making room for it. You're showing them what it looks like to be emotionally sovereign, that you can care and still not chase, that you can love and still have boundaries, and if they're ready, truly ready, this becomes an invitation for them to step into a more honest and connected version of themselves. But even if they're not, you've already done something transformative. You've stepped out of the emotional loop and into your own power. That's not indifference. That's emotional maturity. That's the beginning of everything real. Setting boundaries with an avoidant partner can feel terrifying, like you're risking the connection altogether. And for someone who has been conditioned to believe that love must be earned, maintained, or preserved through self-sacrifice, boundaries might feel like rejection or punishment, but in reality, they are the opposite. Boundaries are not walls meant to push others away. They are bridges that protect what's sacred within you. They don't block connection. They invite healthy connection. The difference is they require both people to show up with emotional responsibility. When you start drawing boundaries, especially with an avoidant partner, you're introducing a new rhythm into the relationship. One that doesn't chase, doesn't explain endlessly, doesn't beg for scraps of attention. It simply says, this is what I need to feel safe. This is what I will and will not allow in my life. That clarity may shock the avoidant at first, especially if they're used to being accommodated without accountability. But what you're really doing is giving them a chance to relate to you from a place of truth, not from a dynamic of control or fear. An avoidant may initially interpret your boundaries as a threat to their autonomy. They may withdraw even further, testing whether your stance is real or just temporary. But the longer you hold your ground with calm consistency, not aggression, not ultimatums, just quiet self-honoring, the more they start to understand that your love is not desperate. It is grounded. It's not here to invade them, but it's also not here to tolerate emotional neglect. This shift creates space for transformation. You're no longer engaging in emotional tug of war. You're rooted, and your rootedness becomes an example, an invitation for them to do the same. You stop responding to their emotional coldness with anxiety. You stop managing their discomfort, and in doing so, you model a different kind of intimacy, one where safety is created not through control, but through clarity. What's most powerful is that these boundaries don't just protect you from their patterns, they protect them from continuing to hurt someone they care about. You're breaking the cycle by refusing to dance the same dance. You're saying, if we are going to do this, we're going to do it in a way that honors both of us. And that kind of love, firm, fierce, and respectful, is what ultimately invites true healing, if they're capable of stepping up to meet it. There's a role many people unknowingly play when they fall in love with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. The role of the fixer, the rescuer, the emotional caretaker. It's the one who constantly tries to hold the relationship together, smooth over the cracks, decode the silence, and absorb the emotional weight that the avoidant refuses to carry. And while this role may seem noble, loving, even, it is actually one of the most self-abandoning positions you can be in. Because to play that role, you must first disconnect from yourself. When you are always anticipating their withdrawal, managing their moods, or strategizing how to keep them comfortable, you start to disappear in the process. Your needs get quieter. Your truth gets buried. You become more focused on their reactions than on your own reality. You feel like if you could just love them right, or be patient enough, or avoid triggering them, maybe they'll finally feel safe enough to come closer. But the truth is, you are participating in a one-sided emotional contract that leaves you drained and unseen. What most people don't realize is that avoidants often remain stuck precisely because they are surrounded by people who enable their avoidance. If you keep stepping in to soothe their discomfort, manage their fears, and compensate for their emotional gaps, they never have to face the consequences of their own limitations. You're carrying the load for both of you. But the moment you step out of that role, everything starts to shift. When you stop trying to fix them, when you stop overfunctioning emotionally, when you let go of trying to be the one who makes it work, something powerful happens. They are suddenly left themselves. No more buffer, no more emotional cushion. They have to actually sit with the feelings they've been avoiding. And that discomfort, though painful, is necessary, because only in that space can growth truly happen. It takes courage to say, I'm no longer playing the role of the emotional savior. I'm here as an equal, not a therapist. And when you do, it sends a message not just to them, but to yourself. I trust that I am enough with having to carry someone else's healing. That's when you reclaim your energy, your dignity, and your worth. And ironically, it's often the very thing that creates the possibility for real connection, because now it's rooted in truth, not obligation. One of the deepest wounds that surfaces when you love an avoidant partner is the feeling of rejection. Their silence feels personal. Their emotional unavailability feels like a commentary on your worth. Every time they pull away, it can feel like a messaging. You're not enough. You're too much. You're the problem. But that perception, while emotionally real, is not actually rooted in truth. Their avoidance isn't about you. It's about the battles they've been fighting inside themselves long before you ever entered the picture. Avoidant attachment is often born from early emotional experiences where closeness felt unsafe, overwhelming, or inconsistent. Somewhere along the way, they learned that intimacy comes with risk. Risk of being hurt, engulfed, or let down. They developed the survival mechanism emotional distance. That distance is their comfort zone. It's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their past. But when you don't understand this, it's easy to internalize their detachment as a personal failure. You may find yourself thinking, if I were different, quieter, calmer, more patient, they would stay. But that mindset traps you in a cycle of self-abandonment. You become so focused on not triggering their fears that you begin to betray your own needs, walking on eggshells to avoid another emotional shutdown. And every time they pull back, you interpret as rejection, not as a symptom of their internal struggle. This misunderstanding deepens the pain and reinforces the belief that love must be earned through emotional suffering. But when you start to see their behavior for what it is, a protective strategy, not a punishment, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop personalizing their distance. You stop making their discomfort about your inadequacy. Instead, you begin to say, this isn't mine to carry. That shift changes everything. You can still care for them, still love them, but you no longer collapse your self-worth every time they struggle to connect. Understanding that their patterns are familiar, not factual, allows you to respond with clarity rather than anxiety. You become grounded, less reactive, more discerning. And that awareness helps you break the cycle because you're no longer playing into the narrative that you have to earn love. You already are loved. Their rejection, however painful, is not a mirror of your value. It's a mirror of their fear. And once you see that clearly, you stop trying to fix it. You start choosing peace over pain, alignment over attachment. You begin to trust that what's truly meant for you will never require you to shrink, chase, or prove. Every time you choose yourself instead of chasing after an avoidant partner's inconsistent love, you're not just making a decision, you're rewiring your brain. That moment when you pause before reacting to their silence, that breath you take before sending the "Are you okay?" text, that quiet commitment to let them commit to you instead of reaching out first. Those small acts are monumental. They teach your nervous system that safety doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. When you're in a relationship dynamic where love feels unpredictable, your brain becomes trained to seek out signs of connection and approval in every interaction. You become hyper-aware of tone, timing, and behavior. This kind of emotional vigilance is exhausting, but it also becomes addictive. The highs of attention feel euphoric. The lows of silence feel unbearable. It's not just emotional. It's biochemical. You become hooked on the roller coaster. But the good news is the brain is changeable. Neuroplasticity means that what was wired through pain can be rewired through intentional self-love. Choosing yourself is not an abstract spiritual concept. It's a neurological act of healing. Each time you soothe your own anxiety instead of outsourcing it to their response, you're showing your brain a new pattern. You're saying, I am enough even in this uncertainty. And over time, this starts to reshape how you respond to emotional triggers. The fear softens, the urgency fades. You begin to develop internal safety, a place inside that doesn't collapse when someone else pulls away. What's powerful about this shift is that it affects more than just your relationship with the avoidant person. It transforms you. You stop repeating the same attachment wounds in other areas of your life. You stop over-explaining, over-giving, and over-apologizing. You start to recognize the difference between connection and obligation. You begin to crave peace instead of chaos, and you start to feel, maybe for the first time, what it means to belong fully to yourself. This rewiring isn't instant. It takes consistency, patience, and self-compassion. But it works. It starts with one small decision to stay present in your own experience rather than abandoning yourself to manage someone else's distance. That decision, repeated again and again, builds a foundation of emotional resilience that can't be shaken by someone else's fear of closeness. Because you've built something stronger than reactive love, you've built internal security, and that changes everything. It's a paradox that catches many people off guard. The moment you stop trying to change or fix the avoidant partner and instead focus entirely on healing yourself, they begin to change. Not because you manipulated them, not because you played hard to get, but because your transformation becomes undeniable. Avoidant individuals often live in a world shaped by their fear of intimacy, a fear that keeps them emotionally withdrawn and disconnected. But when you break free from the role of the pursuer and step into your own healing, you change the emotional frequency of the relationship. You stop reinforcing the pattern that keeps them stuck. Healing yourself is not just about moving on, it's about moving inward. You begin to examine the parts of you that tolerated crumbs, that equated unpredictability with passion, that confused emotional starvation with love. You begin to realize that your desire to fix them was rooted in your own fear of being alone, unchosen, or unloved. And as you sit with those truths, not in judgment, but with compassion, you begin to untangle yourself from the web of dysfunction. You start to build emotional boundaries, not walls. You learn to stay with your own feelings, not abandon them to chase someone else's comfort. And something incredible happens when you do this. Your energy changes. You become less reactive, more grounded, less desperate for validation, more anchored in self-worth. You stop showing up from a place of need and start showing up from a place of clarity. You're no longer trying to convince someone to love you. You already love yourself. That shift doesn't go unnoticed. Avoidant partners, who are often hypersensitive to emotional pressure, can sense that you are no longer trying to pull them closer. And in that space, they may, for the first time, feel safe enough to explore closeness on their own terms. But whether they do or not is no longer your concern, because by now you've outgrown the version of you who would settle for half love. You've become the kind of person who attracts reciprocity, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. And if they rise to meet you, great. If not, you'll keep walking, rooted, whole, and free. Because in healing yourself, you've done the one thing that no one else could dog. You've ended the cycle, not by fixing the avoidant, but by finally seeing that you were never broken. You were just waiting for your own love to show up. And now it has. Healing from an avoidant relationship doesn't happen through chasing, convincing, or holding on tighter. It begins the very moment you stop abandoning yourself for someone else's comfort. That is the real turning point. Not when the avoidant partner suddenly comes closer, but when you stop running after someone who keeps stepping away. It's in that quiet, powerful decision to choose your peace, your stability, your dignity over the roller coaster of inconsistency. That moment is not about giving up on them. It's about finally showing up for you. And in that shift, the entire story begins to change. Throughout this journey, the most important thing you reclaim is your energy. You begin to understand that love isn't proven through suffering or endurance. It's not about waiting long enough for someone to realize your worth. Real love reflects back the love you already give yourself. When you stop reacting their distance and start responding to your own needs, you create a foundation that doesn't rely on someone else's readiness. You stop playing the caretaker, the chaser, the emotional manager, and in doing so, you free yourself from a pattern that was never yours to carry in the first place. Beautiful, and often unexpected, is that your personal transformation sends out a ripple effect. Whether or not the avoidant partner changes, your inner world begins to shift. You're calmer, more discerning, more anchored in your truth. You're no longer triggered by absence because you're no longer sourcing your safety from from another person, and if they do begin to change, it's not because you begged or proved your worth. It's because your healing forced them to confront what's real. Your wholeness became a mirror. Your boundaries became a compass. Your peace became too loud to ignore. Ultimately, this speech is not just about understanding avoidant attachment. It's about breaking the unconscious contract that says you must lose yourself to be loved. Healing begins the moment you choose to stop running after love that keeps running from you. It begins the moment you realize I don't have to chase to be chosen. You are already whole, already worthy. And when you live from that place, everything around you begins to rise or fall away in alignment with your highest self. That's not just the healing of an avoidant heart. That's the rebirth of your own. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this space with me. If today's message resonated with you, if you've ever felt unseen, unchosen, or emotionally exhausted from loving someone who pulls away, I want you to know you're not alone and you are not powerless. Healing starts the moment you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. If this video spoke to your heart, please give it a like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on emotional healing, self-worth, and relationship transformation. Remember, your peace is not up for negotiation. Your love is not meant to be a struggle. And the moment you choose yourself fully is the moment everything begins to shift. Take care of your heart. You deserve safe, reciprocal love, and starting from within. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and most of all, stay loyal to you. Much love and goodbye for now.